people hear that and they think like, okay, cool. So I'm going to go and I'm just going to hit another 30 hours of cold calling myself instead of, outsourcing it because they have such a broke mindset around it. That is the greatest way to have an absolutely miserable life as an entrepreneur. What's going on, guys? Welcome to this episode of the Collecting Keys Mike and Dan show, where I, Mike DeHaan, and my host here, Dan Austin, talk about real estate investing, business, and whatever the hell else we feel like that week. So,
Fair enough.
Here we are, wrapping up Q1 already.
It's Friday, the last day of Q1.
It is. Yeah, man, freaking flew by. It's funny, at the beginning of the year, I started doing this Instagram thing which is an idea from our buddy Drew Ward, whose episode actually should be coming out, I think, this next week on the Collecting Keys podcast. So the week after you listen to this one, Drew's will be coming out. But he did this thing last year where every week he would post like a weekly update, and it would just sort of like review all the stuff that he personally and that his business accomplished in the previous week. And I thought it was super cool. And I've been doing that almost as just like a reflection exercise. And I will say it helps keep me accountable to like not only reflecting on progress, but also getting stuff done. Because if it gets to like Thursday, I'll be like, fuck, I don't have anything good to put on my update for the week.
You gotta have like, well, I can't put, I did lunch every day.
I hit 5 workouts. Exactly. Like, well, I already do that, Yeah. So, but it's been really good. And then the thing that's really cool that I like about it too, as I've been doing that, it's actually been a really great way to get engagement from other listeners. And I've had a lot of people reach out and say that it's like inspired them to start to take more action and those sort of things. So if you're somebody that, I don't know, likes to show your progress, or you want to engage with other people sort of in your sphere, it's really simple. I literally just went on Canva and I made like a, little thing, like a little template that took me 5 seconds. I just swap out the background picture and I just list my weekly updates every week. And I could hardly believe this past week when it was already week 12 though.
I know, that is wild.
Freaking flying by me.
You know what else is hard to do is reflect back on success. That's always like really challenging for me anyways, personally. Some people are like really good at, they're like, I love celebrating my wins. I'm like, man, I guess I don't have enough wins to celebrate. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think the challenge comes with that because your framework of what's a win changes.
Sure.
I mean, I always remember our first deal that we assigned, man. Mm-hmm. We were standing outside the freaking Koza house. Yeah. And I remember I talked to the guys that were going to buy it. They just beat me down on like $5,000 for the freaking deal. Yeah. But I was like, doesn't matter, dude. We're wholesalers now. We're making money.
Yeah. How long had we been
like high-fived in the yard?
In business before that? Because if you step back, so we started out together in business. We both had owned real estate before, done real estate stuff before. Mm-hmm. We started out in business. We started marketing. And before we got our first deal, we bought a duplex from another wholesaler and we're renovating that. And then we bought a house off the MLS. Mm-hmm. Which is exactly why we got into business, because you couldn't do that. But we still bought one off the MLS, which was great. Yeah. And then, so we bought that one off the MLS though because we had a deal going with the state where they were looking for a rancher style house that was that size that they wanted to put some people in. Yep. And so we literally went and like walked to the house with them and said, does this fit your criteria? And they're like, yes. And then we proceeded to close on it. And they were like, actually, we don't want it. Yeah, we're like, nope. that house is one of our top performers actually now. But like that was kind of a sticky situation. But we were in that house, that 3-bed, 1-bath house, because there was a little bit of maintenance we ended up having to do. I can't remember when we bought it, but
it's a bunch of random stuff.
But we were standing in the front of the house, and that deal came.
Yeah, when we assigned it. Well, so we got that one signed around about 2 or 3 days before it, and we had decided to go to these guys when we got a deal because we had connected with them previously. At least I had at a meetup, and they had.
You met.
It was
you
pre-COVID.
That's surprising.
Yeah. So I had met a person that knew one of the guys that we connected with. And they and I said like, oh yeah, we're starting up this wholesale business. This was pre-COVID. Then COVID happened. Everything got weird. All of the buyers shut down, pretty much everyone that was buying properties. And this guy who I connected with kind of on the phone reached out coincidentally like 2 weeks before. And he was like, hey, I don't know if you're still in business with the pandemic, but I'm still interested in buying properties. And then sure enough, we got the deal signed around. He was the first person that I went to, and he was interested in
You're
it.
like, hell yeah, we're in full swing, man. We're crushing it out here.
I mean, we were hustling, dude. Like we were trying to figure it out for those first months. But that first deal was about 5 months before we got it signed around. So we did our first mailing at the beginning of February. And it was like February 1st, I believe we sent the first batch of mail, and we got that deal signed around. I actually looked not too long ago. It was right before Memorial Day, so it was the end of May. So
right.
it's not quite 5 months, right? It was about 4 months and a bit. But we spent $25,000 on marketing, plus all the systems, plus all the time that we'd gone into it at that point. So we were pretty committed. And we signed it around for a whopping $7,500 fee, which the guys then proceeded to vacuum the carpet and throw on the MLS, and they made like 80 grand.
After beating us up over the phone. That it was just not a big
After
deal.
beating us up over $5,000 about how tight it was.
The best thing is that we knew that, and we're like, that only happened just once. Only one time.
Oh, yeah.
It's never happened to us again, at least with them.
Not with them. I mean, and we sold dozens and dozens of deals to them over the years.
Yeah, it paid off for sure. Sometimes you got to do that first little, like be humbled a little bit so that the relationship can expand and grow in the future. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's not about that maximizing every penny of every single deal, because a lot of times the relationship is so much more valuable, even on the buyer side. If you're like, and if you just want to be a buyer and you want good deals to come to you, which is honestly why a lot of people come to us to get coaching or to understand or use our systems, is because they just want access to more deals, because they just don't feel like they can organically get those. But if you want more deals organically without having to do all this other stuff, just be a good buyer and don't beat up the other wholesaler, or don't beat up the seller on things. Just be like, you know what? This is a good enough deal for me. I'm not going to squeeze you for any more if it works for your numbers, because that right there on that first initial deal, you become a closer. And people are like, I know that guy's a closer. He's not going to make it a problem for me. They're not going to create drama. They showed up with their money. We closed on time. I got my fee, or I got whatever profits I was getting from that sale, and the buyer got what they wanted. Like, that's kind of the goal.
It is. Well, and I'll say too, that also exists on the other side. If you're the wholesaler, don't go and be beating up your buyers trying to squeeze out everything that you can out of them, because, tell you what, like there's some people, their whole business model is they try and they find like the new buyer that's ignorant.
Yes.
And, they try to get them to overpay. Like a lot of these people with these big buyers lists. I mean, one of our main competitors here in town, that's like literally what they do, is they go and they try to piece a shitty deal with a buyer that doesn't know what the hell they're doing. They go and they take out all the new people. They try to show them this is how you invest in real estate. They sell them a deal and they don't care if they make money. And more often than not, they lose.
You want to know how
ass.
I know that they have shitty deals? Is their employees have to go elsewhere to look for deals.
Yeah, you're honestly right. Yeah. Like, oh my God. But point being, every time you do that, you're making your buyers list smaller. You've now taken a person that could have been a lifelong buyer. You've made them quit real estate because they just lost their ass, so they have all their money tied up. And you get a bad reputation doing that. Yep. I mean, one of the businesses that used to be here that's no longer around, they got a really bad reputation for that. And people stopped buying deals from them, period, because everything they would send out would be so bad. And all it takes is 2 or 3 deals like that. And then you start to get a word for yourself amongst the local community. Yep. No one will do business with you at all anymore at that point.
Yeah, the experts or the consistent buyers are going to see what you're doing, and they're automatically going to be like, yeah, I'm not playing that game. And they'll just based on principle, they'll just choose not to do business with you because they typically have options. And then, you beat you screw over, or you don't do good business with a few of the new buyers. Eventually, those new buyers are going to meetups, and then they explain their story, and then those other new buyers get scared, and then you just don't have the new buyers or the expert buyers.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're in like a huge market like Phoenix or Houston or some of these places where there's like literally thousands and thousands of buyers, it might take a little bit longer for that to happen, but it will still happen.
Yes.
Eventually stuff will come around and you're going to end up in a bad spot. Mm-hmm. So point is, on either side, don't be greedy, and just make sure that you do everything you can to make stuff a win-win situation all around. Right. And it's all about longevity. If you want to make like actual money in this business, and you don't want to have like a quick payday, which you then eventually lose because life happens, right? But you want to have it where you're making actual life-changing money and you're actually having actual wealth-generating opportunities. You have to be in those for the long.
Yeah, we had a couple of great conversations in our investor coaching call today, and one of them was like, from Dylan, one of the guys who just crushes it in our program, and he was just talking about like how sometimes like he's having a tough month, or he's like April is going to be awesome for closings, but but March, no closings, and how that doesn't feel good when you see other people, including us, on social media talking about doing deals or making progress. But that doesn't mean, just because you see this new person in the game doing all these things, it doesn't mean they're actually making money. But they're talking about how great things are, but really behind the scenes, it might not be that great. And 5 months later, they're filing bankruptcy.
Yeah, especially with real estate, I feel like that's such a big problem because there's big checks that go around in real estate, but they never show the whole story. You know, and we've all been on Instagram, social media, whatever, and we've seen these posts of like the HUD statement, and it's like, oh yeah, due to seller $107,000, and they're like, learn how I accomplished this. I'm so awesome. What they don't show you is the $75,000 down payment they had on the deal and the $40,000 renovation. Yep. So they actually lost $5,000, yes. Right? And you have no idea that they're just, throwing this bullshit out there. And I did an Instagram post on that not too long ago where I took the HUD, a snippet of the HUD from the flip that we just lost $50,000 on a couple months ago now. Yeah. And because we had like $120,000 that came back.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. But yeah, it was six figures.
Yeah, it was like a fat check, right? But it's so easy to post that and not know the whole story. And people get so tied up with it. And so like what we said to Dylan today, he literally even says, like, when I see guys like you guys crushing it and other people crushing it, and I'm like, understand, like, our business is doing well. You and me are not cashing fat checks every month. It's all going back to be reinvested into the business, working on bigger things.
We've always done
what is our... Yeah, exactly. And we even have had this with like staff and things like that, where they like see like the wholesale fees they get closed and that sort of stuff, and they're kind of like, "Well, I'm only making this amount of commission." I'm like, "Bro, you're making more than me on a regular month." Like where we will make our money as a business owner, and this is how any business owner is it gets built up over a quarter, 6 months, a year, and then you take a large distribution from it because you've maintained strong performance. And sure, you can increase your salary, things like that, but typically it's not beneficial to do that unless you want to have a job.
Yeah.
Which most of us do this to not have a job, but to have a business.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have obviously several different businesses together. In our business model, the Collecting Keys brand is slightly different than your typical wholesale business. We still have our wholesale business. That's just a framework of a wholesale business, but then we have the Collecting Keys business. And although it's different, you can still kind of compare running a business to like running a rental property. When you buy a rental property, like when I coach people, I'm like, you don't just get to take all the money out of it right away. You're not doing a cash out refinance right away. You're not doing like all the cash flow that comes to you. No, you got to build up reserves. You got to build up equity. Same thing with a business. You build up reserves so that you can continue to pay your staff and continue to invest in your systems and your marketing. And then you build up the equity, because the more revenue that a business can have, the more equity you have in that business, the more valuable the business is. So as a business owner, your goal is to increase both of those, your reserves and your equity, to a position where you finally can start paying yourself. And this kind of goes a little bit against the profit first model. When you're starting a business, generally speaking, profit's got to get reinvested in a business.
Yeah.
And so to that point, yes, we might be doing a lot of transactions all the time, or doing a lot of bringing a lot of revenue. But depending on what you're doing in your business, some people are at a different season where they are taking the revenue from their business because they're at that point where they're on the set it and forget it, and they don't want more growth. But if you want growth, you have to invest.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, where a lot of people, they end up in this situation where they feel like they are married to their business and they have to be working all the time. And that's one of the things that I don't like about this whole mentality of like, entrepreneurs are the only people that'll work 80 hours. They don't have to work 40.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that that's true to an extent, but I think what gets lost in that statement is that it is implying that that person is doing actual tangible work in the business, which is not true. If you are running your business correctly, you are reinvesting that money, that your profit that you're making, into systems, into staff to actually operate the business. And then that 80 hours of work comes in the form of educating and learning and networking, right, and like sort of like analyzing and strategizing, which is not tangible work, right? Like people hear that and they think like, okay, cool. So I'm going to go and I'm just going to hit another 30 hours of cold calling myself instead of outsourcing it because they have such a broke mindset around it. That is the greatest way to have an absolutely miserable life as an entrepreneur.
Yes, and people are. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs do that, and they basically create a job for themselves where they are doing what you're saying, the tangible or the task based work, and you can't get it, dude. You and I have been there. It's like hard to get off that hamster wheel when you're so used to doing it, and for you to create additional revenue, it needs to get done now. So when do you have time to train that person to come and do it behind you, and then when they fail, be accepting of that failure that you maybe didn't get as much revenue as you had if you would have done it yourself.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that it's, you do have to do that in periods of time. Like, I mean, especially over the past month, there were weeks sort of through March where I was working 12 to 14-hour days every single week, Monday through Saturday pretty much, or Sunday through Friday, whatever it was. And but the whole period with that was it was preparing to not have to do that here in the future.
Yep.
Right. And it was a planned period of time where like, I'm going to have to work like this for the next 2 to 3 weeks, month, whatever, as we bring on more people, we onboard more people, we train more people, and then I will be able to focus on the bigger part. But, and when you're a new entrepreneur, it's the same thing. You don't necessarily have money yet to be able to bring in the systems or the staff and that sort of stuff. So you have to work like that. Yep. But I think the objective and the way that you can guarantee growth is there always has to be the intention of, I'm not doing this forever. The money that I am generating through these 12-hour days right now, I am going to be strategically putting towards the growth of the business. Mm-hmm. And that's what leads to longevity. Yep. And so, and like making sure you don't burn out and you actually have growth and success.
Yeah, you and I talk on our like management meetings, I'll call them, like the step function kind of concept. You're going to do things like, think of a stairs, right? So you're going to do things in a certain season of your business or a certain a part of your business where you're just kind of doing the exact same thing. Like you said, hey, 3 weeks, I got to grind for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. But that's going to take this step function. I'm going to jump up to the next step, to the next level. I'm going to be able to hire this staff member. Now, all that stuff behind me, that stair below, it's behind me. I don't have to worry about that. That's not my thing anymore. And then you just kind of do these step functions up through your business. It doesn't have to be this like straight line increase of growth. Sometimes you're in these moments where it does suck and you're working your tail off or you feel like you're going backwards, but then you get to the next step.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good transition too. We had a request for a topic to talk about, sort of on the same lines, from somebody in our instant investor call, Otto, today. He asked about basically the mindset, both the mindset and like the actual, like physical data, or like the literal data about going from a survival to a sort of abundance mentality,
right?
And what that
going
looks
from
like.
Maybe like, hey, I'm starting out and I just proved that I can make money and now I am making money. What do I do next, kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which I think is a great escalation of what we were just talking about, of like getting off the entrepreneur hamster wheel, about how do you actually know when you've made that. So like we're talking about how we are voluntarily working like that because it's strategic. How do you go from being the person that does that because they have to versus the person that's doing it that's strategic? And what does that look like mindset wise? And also like literally with your numbers, like what does that look like? And how do you know that you're in a position that you can do that? Yep. What are your thoughts on it?
So my thoughts on the numbers or what it looks like, I think are all like arbitrary. I think a lot of it's like a sense of like what you've done, like where you come and what you've accomplished. For us, like that moment, I would say that initial moment was the story we talked about earlier where we made $7,500. So we went through like straight, that was like, I would call that not like starvation or anything like that, because we were buying properties somehow, like with the limited funds we had, but like we were still making progress in real estate. So it wasn't like we were just like, oh my God, this is all we got. But we got that first deal for $7,500, and that was proof of concept that allowed us to continue going forward. So sometimes you just need that proof of concept to keep going forward. So if you're out there struggling to get your first deal, trust me, it will come if you show your consistent actions. Once you get that first deal, you have proof of concept. Now it's put your foot on the pedal. I would say, like when we really started to actually get to the point to where we could like make progress in growing a business, was after we hired our first acquisition manager. It wasn't when we hired our first acquisition manager. I think that was a major step and a milestone for us. Mm-hmm. But at that point, our business had not actually flourished and gone to the point to where you and I were paying ourselves or doing anything financially to invest in the business, because everything was just an expense at that point. We got the acquisitions
Yeah.
manager. She started closing deals for us. It allowed us to focus on other things that weren't surviving because sales wasn't our thing.
Yeah, I think that you're completely right on like the mindset position for me, where I feel like I made that transition from sort of survival to abundance was as soon as we started bringing on staff, and we had deals that were closing, and we had stuff that was moving forward without our immediate involvement.
So that
was
would be
needed
like
on it.
what, fast forward 6 to 8 months after that first acquisition manager? Is that what you're saying?
That's where I would see it.
Yeah,
So
that's
because
kind of
when we
about
had
when I
our
would say
first
that.
one, yeah, we still had to be super involved. I would say where I felt like we suddenly had a period of where I was like, dang, we're doing something right now was when we had our acquisition manager and we had our first lead manager, and they were working on stuff together and deals were getting moved, and like all we were doing was having to disposition.
Right.
I say all we were doing, which was still a lot of work,
Yeah.
but all of a sudden it seemed like there was a machine that was sort of operating on its own, and you were able to take opportunity from it,
Yes.
instead of like you're trying to, make your cake and eat it too or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know.
that's a
real
great
saying.
point with the way our business was set up too, because at that point, like things were coming over the fence from our lead manager and our acquisition manager, and then it was up to you and me to say, do we buy this? Do we wholesale this? Do we flip this? What do we do? And then those decisions were made, and then we had outputs for each of those to make money.
Yeah. Yeah. That's huge. And then, so that's the mindset side. And then for the actual tangible numbers about what that looked like. And I think that this pattern exists in pretty much any business, especially ones that have large transactional potential like this. When you have your first big month, and big is relative to you. For us, I would say it was like our first like 6-figure month. I think it was actually like our second one where this really started to make sense. But actually, no, I'd say it's our first one. It was that first October when we had our first acquisition manager come on. And I remember because it was like right before my 30th birthday. And I went up, and it was, end of my birthday is October 31st. It's the end of the month. I remember going up to hang out with my parents in Sandpoint and my wife. With my parents in Sandpoint with my wife. And I was like, my entire life is now different because of what I just proved that we could do in a month with a super basic system and us and one other person.
Yep.
Right. And that immediately changed it. And I think that the reason that it made it like on paper showed that to me, because we were not in a position where either of us like needed that money to survive. And I knew that we were going to be able to take all of that and just immediately apply it to the business, which is what we did. Mm-hmm. And I had at that point figured out enough of the process that I knew if we did that, what the future potential would be from doing that.
Yeah, I think to clarify that, like, what does that look like or feel like dollars and cents wise? If I could put that in, because it's going to be different. Like you said, you and I didn't need that money to live off of, right? So that number could be various, and it could have different meaning to people. But when you get to that point in your business where you just realize that you could pre-fund the next 2 or 3 months of your operation and not have to worry about money, that's when I think you make that monetary position, and that also that emotional, like, oh my gosh, you just expanded your emotional, like the amount of emotional space you have to think about other things as opposed to how am I going to pay for my next month's marketing. Right.
Yeah.
Or the next month isn't an expense, right? Where like for you, you said first 5 months, that was 5 months of you and I writing checks to the business. Now the business is writing its own checks, and you can do that for 2 to 3 months or however long you feel comfortable with that you want to have that business paid for up front if you had no revenue.
There you go. You just said it way more simply than me, but yeah, you're completely right. And I think too, just on the back end of it, it is having the system and the KPIs kind of measured that you know what that looks like, and you don't feel like you're just taking the business money and putting it on a roulette wheel every single time.
Yeah, that's a great point. So it's like if you want to do one deal a month for 3 months, you better have in your deal cost per deal is $3,000, and you just get crashed a $9,000 check and put it in the bank. And that's going to cover your cost of marketing for 3,000. There you go. And say the average cost per deal is 9,000, or the average profit per deal is $9,000. Now you've got 3 more months every time you get $9,000. That's kind of I guess the metrics you're talking about a little bit. I mean, I'm breaking down too simple, but that's how you think about it, right? You need to know how much it costs you to operate your business.
Yeah. And it takes a while to get there. And I think one of the challenges that you kind of need to go through the uncertainty and the suck factor for a period of time before you get the right to be there. Like, because I will say there are people that you hear about that jump into this business and their first month, they just hit it out of the park. I would say, if anything, those people are less likely to do well over the long run because they have been spoiled out of the gates, right? So then eventually when they do get into a dry spell, which will happen, it happens to everybody, they're not going to be able to endure it because their sort of expectation was set by that unrealistic first month. I think the best people, in fact, I know the best people in this business, they're the ones who get in and they kind of struggle for a couple of months to figure it out, and all they know is that no matter what happens in the future, they've already been at zero at one point and they can deal with that. Right.
That's great because you have the wherewithal and you understand that. And you're like, this ain't that bad. I only closed one deal this month. I went 5 months without closing a deal.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then bigger picture too, after you do that for a while, you start to like understand business, those sort of things. This is where I would say the true bigger picture, mindset change between survival and abundance happens is when you know that the basic patterns that you've learned in like your wholesale business or whatever business you're in, that you can do that somewhere else, and we have uncovered that with various things. So like you learn how to make money, you learn like making money is actually not that hard if you have a basic value, basic offer that creates value for people, and you have a general level of execution and you know how to sell it. Right. That's really all you need. And you can make very significant money if you just piece those things together, but you need to know what that looks like, which is something that you have to learn through trial and error.
Yeah, it's not hard to make money. What I always told you is like, it's not hard to make money on your own and like figuring it out. It's hard to make a lot of money consistently though. It's like the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire, like really highly successful. Like you can go out there and here's a good example. This is a topic that's on my mind because I had to talk to a carpet guy today, a carpet cleaner. You can go and buy a van, put a carpet cleaning machine in it, and go and be a carpet cleaner and make money. Like that is not hard. You could go start a Facebook page, do all these things, and you'll make probably a good living for your family. You're not going to be like well off, whatever, like to where you can retire at age 30, like whatever. That's probably not going to happen. Maybe there's some awesome carpet cleaners out there that can do that. I don't know. I'm just making an assumption based on what I pay that you can't do that. What's really hard to do is own 100 carpet cleaning vans and go clean 100 houses every 2 hours in your carpet cleaning business while you sit back and just run the system. Like that's really hard to do compared to owning one carpet cleaner.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I think, that's the definition of, like that person getting out of the hamster wheel, right? Like it is the person that can take the money from their singular van, use it to get another van. They hire staff to run the first van and the second van, and then they focus their time on how to get more vans. But most people never get that way because they're too worried about the loss that they're going to be having or the expense from no longer being the guy
in the van. Exactly, the cost of paying that person. And the challenge, one of the reasons why it's so hard to make that step or to go from one van to the 100 vans is because now you've become a problem solver as the owner of the business, and solving problems is hard. Okay, so say you want to go buy 5 vans, but you don't have money. Now you got to solve the problem of no money. You need to go raise capital and figure that out. Get investors to come and help you do that. Like that would be a solution. Now you have to figure out how to schedule 5 guys at the same time. How can you schedule 5 guys? Well, you need a scheduling tool. You got to create that. You got to buy that. You got to integrate that into your systems. And then you just start seeing all these problems you have to solve. And people are like, I don't want to do that. I'll go back to the one van, go clean carpets, or go back to my W-2 job where I do the same thing over and over every day, because problem solving is hard and not everybody's cut out to do it.
It is, and the challenge is that there's no like playbook for that. Like you can join a group coaching program, right? You can join like our instant investor program. We'll give you like the general foundation, but you still need to figure out what's going to work for you and your market and your lifestyle and your skill set, and you can find that for everything. Like there are literally, you talked about the carpet cleaning. There are literally groups you can join about how to scale a cleaning business. I have seen these advertised on Facebook.
Oh, really?
And they're like, here is how you can go and you can scale a cleaning business by getting corporate clients and having cleaners and all that sort of stuff. They'll give you like their CRM they use, give you all those sort of things. That is awesome. But it's not going to get you your clients. It's not going to help with the client communication.
It's not going to help managing employees.
It is. It's, right. It's not going to help when your cleaner doesn't show up to clean a place that they're supposed to do. those are the problems that you have to solve as an entrepreneur. And that's why you get to make real money, right? On top of everything else. But that's also the risk, because going through that, you're going to lose money along the way. You're going to have to spend money that you were hoping you were going to have to spend. You're going to have months where you don't make anything, but everyone else that works for you makes money.
Yes.
Right? How many times have we been there? So many times. And that's one of the biggest things too, is through the traditional education process, through the traditional sort of work life that we have here in the United States and most places, they get so used to living off of like a monthly income, monthly stability. And if you're going to go be an entrepreneur, you basically say, I'm willing to risk having none of that to be able to have, potentially more freedom, more control of my time, and hopefully, if you're lucky, make more money than if you would just work that W-2 job.
Bingo.
Yeah. So
Well said.
Anyway, yeah, there you go. 30 minutes of business talk. If you're here for real estate strategy, I'm sorry, today was not the day.
You know what? Here, I'll give you some. I'll dump on you for a minute. We are, I think, officially the #1 basement flooded property holding company in our market. We had 2 this week.
Again?
2 basements.
I didn't even know that we have 2 basements anymore.
We had one. I think I talked to you. Well, I didn't tell you exactly what happened. A hot water tank flooded the basement of Glencourt, one of our favorite rental properties.
Did it really? I thought that shit was new.
No, it wasn't. So that leaked, flooded, whole 9 yards. And then the same day, because I haven't had to deal with, we've offloaded a bunch of our properties, property management. We have a handful hanging over that I'm still dealing with. I haven't thought about property management in a long time. And then a floor drain in another property in the basement started leaking water up through the sewer and through the backed up into the basement and flooded that. That one wasn't that bad, but it's like,
which one's that one?
Frederick. So
Frederick,
yeah, I got an email like, "Hey, by the way, the floor drain's backing up." I was like, "What?" So anyhow, this reminds me of some principles that I've tried to live by and don't always do this perfectly. But when you buy a property and you're renovating it, replace shit that you should replace, like the hot water tank. So Glenn, that hot water tank was 30 years old. We knew it needed to be replaced, but we were being scummy flippers, and we didn't replace it because it was working fine, right?
And we were planning to sell it, and we did sell it.
Didn't sell it.
No, we did, but then insurance.
Yeah, we did sell it.
You go.
There's a whole.
Go listen to the episodes from like March of last year, and you can hear that whole fiasco.
Yeah. There's a whole fiasco around that, and so that became a hot water tank that we now own because we had to convert it to a rental property. Lo and behold, it flooded. Several months ago, last year probably, we were talking about this. We had an Airbnb house that we remodeled top to bottom and chose to not replace the furnace. It was an oil furnace that leaked and mutilated our brand new basement. That killed us for 6 to 8 months or whatever. But we went on a tear there for like 12-month period where we were buying properties so fast and doing such large renovations that the capital expenditure of doing some of this wasn't quite the easiest decision to make. And B, there's just so much going on. It's like, where do you draw the line as far as replacing and not replacing and scheduling contractors? Because you're like, we have to get our contractor from this house to that house. If I wait for a furnace company, it's going to delay the project 2 weeks, right? You start having to make these decisions on the fly. So you got to be careful there and a little bit more organized in those, because most of the things, even the Frederick house, like a simple fix to that would have been scoping the sewer and just getting it cleaned out right before we turned it over to tenants. Because we remodeled, Frederick was a great one because we remodeled this house in the beginning of 21 or midway through 21, and then rented it out, and it sat vacant until 3 months ago. And the state was paying us to own it. So we didn't know that there would be a problem. And then they moved in, and lo and behold, guess what happened? They started using the washing machine, all this sort of stuff. But a simple upfront fix would have been, hey, scope your sewer, clean it out, because it's an older house, 50s. You should make a judgment call on that. And my point bringing this up is as you own properties and you're burring them, which everybody loves to talk about burring properties, do some upfront things to save yourself from having to spend your OPEX and CAPEX set-asides all at once on something silly like a hot water tank.
Yeah. I mean, I will say it is a fine balance, right? Because you look at the rate that we were buying everything, if we had spent the extra money to fix all of those things when we needed to, we would not have been able to buy as many assets.
Oh, absolutely. It would have been challenging in 100%. And that's why in the beginning of the conversation, it's like we have these principles that we had to move away from that I don't love, and it bites you in the ass. It does. It inevitably, it's a numbers game. You could get away with it on one property, but once you get 20, 30 properties just stacked on top of each other, inevitably that, and this also speaks to the importance of set-asides. Like I might tell Mike, hey, we're not cash flowing on this property. And a normal person would be like, what? Why do we even own it? It's like, well, we're not cash flowing on it right now, but we do have money going to set-asides in case something happens. Like a hot water tank costs you $1,800. And yes, I know that's ridiculously expensive, but that's what you have to pay when it breaks in the middle of the day and you got to help a tenant out.
You got to do it immediately. Yeah. And well, I guess the benefit though of the route that we did go, so we pushed off some of these things. We were able to build this portfolio of rentals, at least the thing's paying for itself.
Yes. We're not writing checks.
But if we had this, if we had to spend all the extra money, spend an extra $40,000-$50,000, that's like that's one less property that we could have potentially bought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
We're sitting on a nice set
even,
of reserves too. Like we don't even, I don't even think twice about it. We just call the companies and we take care of it.
Yeah. But now that is an interesting conversation too. I wonder, I mean, like if you look at people, right, if they are putting every dollar they have into making a single property bulletproof, is that actually better than them making one okay and then buying a second property?
Well,
right?
what about this? The conversation
will depend
would be
on
buy a turnkey rental versus buying one that needs work. That's also a similar conversation because one is going to cost more money but takes less maintenance and CapEx set-asides versus the other. So the same thing would be like, well, and I think there is a fine line. I think what you have to choose, and this is all a matter of opinion for a lot of people, but if you follow any bigger time real estate investors, you'll start seeing common themes. And people always actually kind of like look at me funny when I'm like, no, we actually spend more money on rental properties than we do flips, material wise. So instead of buying $3.50 LVP for a flip, we might buy $3 LVP for a flip because it's a flip and it's likely going to be something a family lives. Hold on a second.
Got Dan's kiddos coming in. But anyway, what he was saying was about the flip. Here, Max, we'll just cut this section out here.
Hey, sorry about that.
No worries. So we gotta edit it.
What was I saying?
All right. You're going into the $3 flip.
Oh yeah. So if we buy more expensive materials for our rental properties because they get their butts kicked by tenants and they're seeing constant turnover, where a flip, it's likely a family buying it from you and it's going to have less turnover. And let's be honest, I don't own the flip after I sell it. I own the rental property after I sell it. So there's like this, you're walking this fine line of like, where do you put the money? I would say there's certain things you should put your money into and other things not. Like you'd be surprised. I would choose to put not granite, but quartz countertops in a rental over laminate because laminate, I've seen it too many times get ripped apart.
Yeah.
And it makes it look nice. And people are like, I have a property. My duplex unit has quartz countertops. People are like, really? That's nice. It's a little bit more of a cost. No doubt. It's probably twice the cost for us to do that. But generally our kitchens are small enough that it's only an $800, $900 additional cost on top of laminate. And it looks better and it never fails. Like there's no, the edges of the laminate don't get ripped off because it's stone. It doesn't get scratched and cut up because it's stone. And so those are things to think about as you're renovating a property versus flipping a property.
Yeah. Yeah. And then like over the long term too, you're right. It just makes less turnover. And sure, you have to write the extra money right now, but that's where you probably should.
But the problem I see people do is they just want it to be cute or they just want it that way. So then they start, to your point earlier, they start spending money on things that you should not spend money on, that you don't need to. And you have to renovate to the area. If you're in a C- area, don't renovate your property like it's an A class, whether it's a flip or a buy and hold. Don't do it.
Yeah. It's funny what you just said. That's like the most repeated joke I hear amongst like rehabbers right now is like, because especially 2021, so many new people got into the real estate renovation space, and we see this everywhere right now with people that are going into these properties. Especially, it's made significantly worse with Airbnb and Instagram. And there's a lot of people that are like, I'm like buying Airbnb, I'm doing a burr property for this Airbnb, and they like all they do is they want to make it Instagram worthy
Make it
without
cute.
any view of like the functionality or the numbers or all those sort of things. And it's like that is the worst way to approach an investment property.
Yeah.
Chip and Joanna Gaines, do not listen to them for real estate advice. All they want you to do is to buy their Magnolia products, right? And to, give them more viewership. They do not they do not care about helping you make money with real estate. So stop doing what they're doing.
I don't want to belabor the point, and I'll leave it at this, but I know I talk to a lot of folks, you and I do, through like Abundance or other real estate groups or anything. And I know when you hear a logical real estate investor, when they have a spouse that just wants to make a cute house, is when they're like, yeah, we just bought this Airbnb and we're doing, it's like, oh, I see what's going on there. And it's like one of the people in the family or both of them just want a project to make something cute. So there's a lot of well-to-do guys like in GoBundance that have spouses that just wanted a project and they wanted to do the Chip and Joanna Gaines thing, and financially it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, here's where it gets weird, and here's my theory on that. Then this we're going to lose half our audience. So they're be like, "Fuck you guys."
This is a new BMW. Sorry, I was going to say that. It's the new BMW is to have the Airbnb.
So that's true. But here's my theory with those guys that go into that. They are the same guys that they're like, man, I just wish that my wife, spouse, they could be gay, I don't know. I just want my partner to be into real estate as much as I am. And the person's like, I don't care. Math is boring. Your renovations are boring. But they say, what if it was a beach house and we could like do this? And then they're like, bingo. Now they're interested. So now it's
beach house. Come on.
Yeah, it is a bonding moment for them as a couple, even though it is more than likely a poor financial decision. Right.
It's
that is
it's
my
a poor
theory
real
when
estate
people do
business decision, because financially it might be whatever they
That's
care
true.
about. Because like if it's a second home that they're going to use as vacationing, whatever. But yeah, I think you're on the same page. We're trying to articulate the same exact thing, which is it's probably not the best way to build your business after that.
Yeah. I mean, the key is to buy stuff. I mean, if you have longevity in real estate, which you should if you're going to get into this, because it takes a long amount of time to get the true potential with it. Buy stuff, make it bulletproof, plug people in there, and like just freaking leave them alone and let them live out their lives. Make their lives easy as tenants. They'll make your life easy as a landlord, and then go and make more money to buy more stuff.
Find
you
your
do that
easy
50
tenant.
Exactly. Yeah. You do that 10 times, you will be wealthy. You do that 50 times, you're going to be doing really dang well. Right. And it's not impossible. It's not rocket science. You don't need to be going and doing these insane renovations to do that.
Nope. We've done both.
Anyway, we've done both. And and with the couple of really nice renovations that we've done, worth it? What do you think? No.
Let's see. Hold on. Yes, I would say the 20th Avenue, our Airbnb piques my mind because it was worth it because we had to do it because the house was like falling into a hole, and we got an extra lot out of it that's worth good money. But we
could have just.
What we should have done is just sat on that house and just split the lot. It would have been a lot less stressful.
We should have at this point, honestly. But anyway, you live and you learn. But that's part of the game. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening to this week's Mike and Dan show. You should please share this with anyone that you know that is interested in real estate investing, making money, or just listening to you guys talk rubbish for 45 minutes. But if you share this with everybody, it is the easiest way for the show to grow. And we always appreciate, you guys helping us on our journey to show people what it's really like to run a real estate investing business and getting away from kind of like the fluffy, like rags to riches, whatever stuff that you hear everywhere else, which honestly isn't most of us. Let's be real.
Nope.
So please share with everybody. Aside from that, you can now get Collecting Keys merch. If you go to store.collectingkeyspodcast.com, we have like a couple different things you can buy on there right now. We keep stuff high quality, low price for what you're getting. We have no margin on this. All we want, like our vision is that when we have like some sort of bullshit conference or whatever, I don't know, KeysCon, whatever you come up with, that everyone can have.
Love it. That's a great name, man.
I feel like it's pretty good. people can have their merch already. They can come and they can we can just have like a unified collecting keys group. Like that's going to be dope. That is my vision that we will eventually have.
It'll be it won't be like unified, like we're all in uniforms. It'll be like random cool t-shirts from just random stuff that we say.
Yeah. As we put stuff together, we're going to have all sorts of dumb shirts. And we just what we should do. We should do things like limited release. So there's like 20 of each shirt, and you can be like, shit, you got the, BDE shirt. You got the.
Yeah, which reminds me, take some photos. I've gotten some photos of the BDE coming in. Take some photos of you out in the wild if you're buying a shirt, collecting keys shirt or a BDE shirt. I'd like to see the t-shirts getting used.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please, if you do get merch from us or you go buy merch, send us a photo. I would love to have a big. Like Instagram story or something that shows everybody.
Mike wants a collage on his wall.
I do. That'd be sick. That's like means that we make it. I mean, we're not going to beat the guy that got a tattoo.
No, that's crazy.
You heard us talk about that last week about how somebody said he was going to do it.
Good for him.
He did officially do it. It's on my Instagram if you want to see the photos at Mike_invest. And yeah, just we've basically made it at this point. The next person, if somebody gets the BDE Big Dan Energy logo, which is Dan's face. Someone gets that tattoo on them, then you've really made it.
Yeah, that's when you know you're Joe Rogan level.
Yeah, right. So anyways, store.collectingkeyspodcast.com. Go and check that out. Aside from that, guys, if you want to start buying off-market properties, go to collectingkeyspodcast.com/free. You can get our free 5-step guide to start generating off-market leads. And that's enough calls to action for you all. So thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you all next week.